meantime, I'm going to start as Jannelle, Executive Director of ātac. There's two things happening. One is I have somebody who's operating the phone camera for me, which is why it looks so nice. But I'm learning after being on a million Zoom calls that it's now disorienting to speak without seeing my own face. Oh my God, what kind of damage is this experience doing to all of us? In my experience here as Executive Director of ātac, we are running a series of home tours, virtual home tours, and open studio tours. People are showing collections and art they have, art they make, different things like that. So I'm doing this one today. I'm going to take you through a couple of different things. If you would like to be a part of the program, you can go on our website at ātac160.org and you can file a little form and we can sign you up. Okay, so welcome to my home. It's in Providence, Rhode Island. I have recently moved here. I managed to get into this apartment right before everything shut down, so that's super nice. I'm going to take you through my home as if it's a museum, and then I'm going to show you a couple of special installations we have that are specific collections that are on loan from the artist, that's me. And so the first thing I want to tell you about, when I was younger, 20 years ago, I ran with another woman a group called the Women's Spoken Word Show. It was in Boston in the late 90s, early 2000s, and spoken word was all over the place, and we wanted to see more women on the stage. So we formed a group, and initially we called it the Women's Spoken Word Show, and then it had a name change a few years later before we went on tour. That's cilantro. Do you want to see cilantro? And that's cilantro. The theme of the things that I'm showing you today are projects that were done before I was old enough to know better. And some of that's good and some of that's not so good. But if you come over here, you'll see a collection of five posters, flyers really, that were made about 20 years ago. And some of them, not all of them, have an approved stamp on them. That must mean they were the originals. But we originally named this the Women's Spoken Word Show. We really did a number with clip art there. These aren't the best design posters in the whole wide world, but they definitely got the idea across. Oh, so risque. Ridiculous. So we would perform mostly in MS Art in North 175, which is a room that doesn't quite exist anymore, and was one of the main performing rooms for the Studio for Interlude Media, which was my major there at MS Art. And these shows were packed all the time. They were sold out constantly. The rooms were full. I'm sure now as a venue manager, over capacity. And we had about 10 women that would regularly perform, and sometimes we had other people in there, and it was really great. It was really interesting. People had different styles, and we were really well received by our community. So after a couple of years, we thought, like, yeah, let's go on a Northeast tour. That sounds totally like a reasonable thing for 19 and 20-year-olds to organize. So we were production majors, and we had some sense of how we thought that should be done. And so we put together a press kit, and we changed our name to the very clever Library, a Woman's Spoken Word Show, which we thought was so interesting, right? Because it was called Live Girls, but we all had clothes on. Oh, so weird and avant-garde. Amazing. So we put together this press kit, and this was the letter that we sent out to folks. And in all of these different venues, all over New York and Philadelphia, in New Jersey and Boston, asking for the chance to perform on our tour. Well, November, and the tour was in March. That's not too bad, I guess. But I talked about what we had done and what I thought we were capable of, and how great I thought we would be for people's venue. This is an actual photograph that my co-producer took of my baby face while we were talking to venues. Look at this cordless phone. I really felt, I can remember how real I felt like we were talking to all of these venue managers. It was really fun. It was really fun and is an interesting experience that informs the way I do my work now a lot. So we sent this out, we had a little poster, we had all of our press photos, and we had a friend who's a photo major take all of these photos. And we sent them out, kicked our tour off at Rhythm and Muse, which was a bookstore in Boston. And then we got to perform at AS220, which is a venue here in Providence. And then we went to New York. And as I was looking through these papers, I saw that one part, oh, here it says Philadelphia is being finicky. So if anyone has any leads on venues in Philly or New Jersey, let us know right away. We couldn't find anywhere to perform there. We ended up not going there. But we performed at the Brooklyn Arts Exchange during a Women's Performance Festival at the AR Gallery, AS220, CBGB's 313 Gallery. We were right next to CBGB's, their adjacent gallery there. We were lost in New York somewhere, trying to find somewhere to eat. And one of the things that I remember about this tour a lot when I think about the difference in how I communicate now versus how I used to communicate is that there was one woman performing who was consistently a little too quiet. And instead of telling her directly that she was being a little too quiet, what we cleverly did was have her make sure that she was one of the major portions of the sound check, so that in the sound check, we could be like, you need to be a little bit louder, instead of just directly being like, you're too quiet. Because I remember being afraid that it would like screw her up or upset her or something like that, because I was very young. And so that's interesting as far as like how your communication changes in direct communication versus weird passive indirect communication that is ineffective. So this was our first CD. As you can see, I have a stack of them still to this day. And they all come with a sticker, too, actually. And their CD, which has a paper cover on it, which will get stuck in your CD player. This group stands for Women for Action, Integrity, and Learning, which was the women's, the women's collective, the feminist union at Mass Art that I made. Poorly, with really problematic feminism at play. I'm just gonna own that right there. But we did have a budget, and I did use that budget to take this group on tour. But we also had to raise money, and so we made this little pamphlet here. And we were like, hey, help us go on tour. Give us $1,000. Why don't you make those checks payable to these individual people? And they did. And that's wild. We also have put together these little booklets of our spoken word show in writing. I bet you can believe that I thought that was very funny. Because get it? What? So clever. In writing. Oh my goodness. So we did end up going on tour. We performed in all of those places. We performed for a couple more years. We didn't kill each other on this tour, although we came close a couple of times. And I was completely responsible for that because boy, was I annoying. But it was a lot of fun. And actually, you know what? I wanted to say, oh, I didn't put the picture up that I meant to. There was this period of time, right when we were almost done, we all went out to dinner. We took everybody out to dinner, all the performers. And I can remember feeling like so sad. I had this weird sadness come over me with this thing that we had worked so hard for, and it was like coming to a close. And it wasn't just sad that it was over, it was the sadness that I would later learn was basically like the pressing crush of imposter syndrome and perfectionism. like coming down on me that I should feel a different way than I felt, and that things weren't as good as they should have been. And I can't say that that doesn't still happen to me, but boy, is it a waste of time. I'm hoping my Fugazi leave that behind Wednesday. So that's this portion of time. The thing that really blows my mind when I look at these things is how young we were, and how much and how little doubt we kind of had at that time to like just reach out to all these places and like, what's the worst thing they could do? Just say no. And that's still true now. So I try to remember that a lot. So back to our permanent collection. Here's a little shelf of things that I love. Some of these are cards that people have given me. Look at this photograph of these ladies. What are they up to? So I wonder what these people are up to. I love them so much. I wish they were my family. This little comic I did for a zine back in the 90s. This little person is saying the sound of this letter, and this letter is falling in love. And then over here, this is a piece of art that I took from my grandma. I asked her if I could have it, and she said yes. It's an etching. I don't know if you can see the detail in there, but it's some kind of original etching by Anton Peck. I'm not sure, but that's wild that I have that. And I love it so much. And then another piece of grandma art is this. She didn't make it. This hung in the dining room of my grandmother's house for my whole life, and I love it so, so much, and I think it's probably a Boy Scout project. And it smells like cigarettes, just like my grandma. She's passed. I'm looking to see if anyone has any questions. You do not. Here's a photograph from that tour. This is Blue Stockings Book Store. That's my friend Sasha. And oh my goodness, cilantro is being so noisy. I love that photograph so much. I love the colors in it. And when we performed at that bookstore, which is like a historic bookstore, I got onto their they had like a little makeshift stage in the corner, and I almost knocked over an entire bookshelf of books. And that freaked me out big time, but I still managed to pull off my stories. It was terrible. It was great, but I thought I was about to make a very big mistake. But I didn't. It was fine. It was totally fine. Here is a theater I made for my children. And when I say I made it for my children, what I mean is that I made it for myself, and then I gave it to my children on Christmas when they were much younger, and they didn't care nearly as much about it as I did, as it goes. I was in this group called the Art Cheerleaders, and it was an organization that that was made by a student at the School of the Museum of Fine Arts, and then she restarted it, and she had a new troupe come in, and I was very young, and I tried out for it, and I made this performance troupe, and I was so excited. And basically it was a satirical cheerleading group that told cheers about art, tongue-in-cheek, kind of like goofing on what it means to be a working artist. We had real costumes, real cheer costumes that were made. These say JV inside. They have my old initials. And we wore these boots that we had to get resold for theater floors. I love them so much. They're very painful to wear. And we did real like stunts and everything like that, like basket tosses and things. It was very fun. Which will I take out? We got to go to the first ever Ladyfest in Olympia, Washington. And this is a photograph of us practicing in one of the parks there. It was really, it was, and we got to perform in this incredible festival, a Ladyfest. I don't know if you can see this here. This is me doing my super cool part of being a bass. I believe that this woman, I'm not saying anybody's names on purpose because I didn't ask their permission, but this person has a broken rib. And so that's intense. And so all of these super cool bands performed, Bratmobile and, oh my goodness, so many really incredible artists and performers. Hosted by Tammy Ray Harland, Bratmobile. Wow, some of these people aren't around anymore. Like their bands aren't around anymore, and I feel super sad about it. But the day that we performed, the Art Cheerleaders, we performed with Sarah Duger and Slater Kinney, and this was the day that we got to perform at the Capitol Theater. We opened for a bunch of cool bands like that. One of our number was very, very well connected and like very cool. A lot of the people were very cool, and knew people in a bunch of different bands, and was able to connect us to them. And we opened for a bunch of them. This is a paper bag mask from the Guerilla Girls, who we got to protest the Tonys with. And if you're familiar with the Guerilla Girls, they're all very well-known artists who protest and talk about women in art and equity in art, and you don't know who any of the people are. They always wear their masks. So if you get to play with them for a little while, they give you this mask, and I kept it for sure. That was very fun. And then this is just another, look at us all giving the finger. So fun. That was a really fun time in my life. And again, we just went on a national tour. We went all over. We performed in Seattle and San Francisco, and in Olympia, a place in Eugene, I feel like that's true, and all over Boston. And I would tell you some of the cheers, but we did end up having a schism within the group, and lawyers were involved, and I'm not allowed to put this on and tell you cheers, and I think I'm also not allowed to tell you cheers. But there's the stuff I have. All right, we're almost done. Oh yes, and this is the theater, and there's different backdrops. I got real into this that winter, and I hung out in the basement a whole bunch, and there's little people, and now it's day, and I really definitely hyper-focused on this for a good long while, and then I polyurethaned it in the basement and almost passed out because I was not using proper ventilation. Because it was the winter time. All right. She's the star of the show for sure. Okay, well, now we're going to, now I'm gonna bring in, we're rounding the, Solange is very cute. We're rounding the last section of the tour, and I love her so much. And here are some posters. Again, they're really flyers from my college days when I was producing shows with my friends and colleagues in sim. We had a really, sim is a production major. It's a studio for interrelated media. Basically, the people in sim can do anything. You're open to do whatever kind of artwork you want. It's concept-based versus media-based. So there were people who did painting and sculpture and produced shows, but it's student-led. And every Thursday, we had to produce the show that was the critique, the critique period, the major studio. So people presented their work, and the the two students that produced the show were also critiqued on how well that show came together. So we went to a show basically every Thursday for 3 or 4 hours. Cilantro is eating plants. And I just can't have cats die during this time. So we were all just constantly figuring out how to do things and calling up artists who were very well known and asking them if they wanted to like come to Mass Art for a show. And I produced a couple of different shows with for some musicians who were great and felt to me at the time like very famous. And a lot of them were kind of mean. They were kind of mean about the space or mean about how the show sounded or these different things. It was a college and we were students learning. And I got pretty used to that. I got pretty used to bands coming in and being very fussy and like a little bit full of themselves. Do you need me to? They were too young to be colleagues. Awesome. Yes, best worst supporting actor is definitely Cilantro. You guys felt like colleagues though, because we thought we were so professional. And there's somebody in the comment here, Mark, who went to college with me. He's the one saying colleagues sound too professional, and I think that he can also attest to how some of those bands came in being very fancy about themselves. And I got used to that, and I took a lot of pride in like continuing to accommodate people who had really over the top expectations. That's real on brand for me generally. And one of the bands that we had the honor of hosting was Fugazi, and they came in their Penske truck and they rolled their dryer in and plugged it into the hall, and they were the nicest. They were the nicest. They were so sweet. All of the changes they had asked, like for the lighting, were given like those directions were given so kindly, and they were all for the experience of the audience. They were like, "Can you move these lights out this way because I want to be able to see the kids?" Was basically what they kept saying, and it was an incredible experience because they were certainly the highest level performer that I had worked with at that time. And they were kind and respectful to us, which then made me basically think like, oh, well, if this is how they can act with the level of acclaim that they have, then nobody else should be like talking crap to me. And in my professional experience now, that has remained true. That professionals who you would think have earned the right to like be dismissive of other people are often the kindest. So anyway, here we have some amazing posters, flyers from different shows that were done. During the school season, during the school year, we would do these shows called the Sim Big Show. And it was a big deal. It was, everybody put work into it. It was a very large production. And one year I got to run the Sim Big Show, and my co-producer and I came up with a very fun idea, a name for it. And the name for the show was Menage a Deux. And we commissioned one of our colleagues to do a series of posters. And the posters all featured very tastefully done illustrations, simplified illustrations of people in threesomes. And there was nothing showing, but one of the party, the third, was outlined out. And the tagline for the show was, "We can't do it without you." We found this to be very hilarious and clever. that was not an opinion shared by everyone. Not only was the administration pretty bummed out about that choice of advertising, but there were also some of our like schoolmates basically were like, I don't want my art showcased this way. And I'm a little older and I get it, although I still think it's very funny. And so a bunch of the people in the show made their own posters to combat our posters and to advertise the big show. And one of them, I don't have any of the originals at all. And if anybody does, I would love one. But this was one that was that was done instead. And so you can see instead of Menage a Deux, they've renamed it Manager Ducks. And this one manager duck is dotted out. Oh, my favorite. So this, and then I'm just going to tell you about this one. This Fort Capitol was an installation. It was a gallery installation and show. That was just this, the Mass Art had squash courts. Like, they're not there anymore, but they had tons of squash courts that were just down in the basement doing nothing. And these folks had turned them into a fort, and there were beds in there, and it was full of toys, like toys you got to take. I had a bunch of them for a long time, and you could just go in and out of there for like 7 days for a long time. It was weird. I don't remember more about it than that, except that I got an Inspector Gadget puzzle out of the deal, and I had it for a long time. And this little flyer is just written with pencil. It's like not even a photocopy. And it says, "Hell's bells, this will be sweet. A carnival in the Mass Art Courtyard in glorious celebration of the all-school show with food, games, music, moonwalk, and wow, fun. And it's tonight, free." And so all of these shows were produced with ample amounts of hubris. Oh, I want one of those originals if you have one. I am seeing this comment. They were stealing them off of the walls to collect them because they were incredible. They were very well done, very tasteful for a terrible, terrible idea. Here's some other bits. Ed and the Refrigerators. They were a band. They were very young kids. I got to see one at a reunion recently, and I was like, "You're still so young. You must have been so young." So I'm rounding up a close on this tour. But I want to leave you with a little bit of something that makes me remember hope things. So the Studio for Interrelated Media, where I learned how to be an artist, really. And learned how to be in community, and where I learned like how to start thinking about being less afraid of things. It was really formative for me, the kind of artist community that it was. It's something that I bring into my work now. It's the way I think about how to be in a group. I did poorly in a bunch of different ways there because I was bad at listening. It doesn't come naturally to me, you have to work at it. But in a time like this, where everything feels really upended and uncertain, and we're adapting to using the tools around us like Zoom for these creative purposes, and all these other things are like repurposing and rebuilding. I think about that time, and I think about the things I watched people use in the way they weren't supposed to be used to glorious results. And I watched artists solve problems, and I believe that artists solve problems in a similar way that scientists do. It's just critical thinking and problem solving all day long. And I am not excited about the situation we're going through, but I am looking forward to seeing what we make that doesn't exist now. So that major studio was formed by an artist named Harris Barron, who passed away recently, last couple of years. And he was a concept, wacky conceptual artist from the 60s. And he wrote this. He wrote this poem, and a student from the Sim major reads it, a graduating student reads it every year. I'm going to read it for you, and then I'm going to close out. Thanks everyone for being here. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody struggling through this time together. So here we go. Actually, I'm going to say this first. I'm going to read this. That's going to be the end. But then I'm going to go over and end the meeting for everybody in the weird, awkward way we have to end all of these Zoom meetings. I'm just going to say that part out loud so that we all can expect it once it happens. Here we go. I gave student artists freedom, another name for self-confidence, by convincing them that it was up to them to secure it for themselves, by dissolving fear into love. That once decided, possession would be secured with time and energy and will. Thank you.